Falcons have released their initial 53-man roster. Keyword is initial. I fully expect there to be some roster moves made over the next 48 hours, but for now, this is Atlanta's roster, so we're going to run through all the cuts they made and the updated depth charts afterwards. But unfortunately, this is the end of the road for a lot of players, so drop a good luck down in the comment section below for everyone that was released today. Now, let's start on the offensive side for their roster cuts. Beginning with quarterback John Paddock, the UDFA out of Illinois. I don't think there's a practice squad spot for him because they kept Taylor Heinicke, spoiler alert, so that would already be 3 quarterbacks. You got running backs in Spencer Brown and Carlos Washington. I think Carlos Washington has a good chance of making the practice squad. Looking at the wide receivers, Josh Ali, OJ Hiliare, Chris Blair, and Anthony Johnson. I like Chris Blair's chances a lot at making the practice squad if he gets by the waiver wire. Tight ends, Austin Stogner, Jordan Thomas, Josh Thompson, a DB also. Moving along a little bit here, John FitzPatrick, a bit of a veteran player who's been with the Falcons for a while. Ultimately, they went with the younger guy in Ross Dwelley, or I should say a new face in Ross Dwelley. Offensive lineman galore getting released. Zack Bailey, Jaryd Jones-Smith, John Leglue, Julien Davenport, Andrew Stueber, Barry Wesley. Maybe we see Stueber make the practice squad or Barry Wesley, but I don't think there's a lot of no-brainers in that section. Tommy Togiai and Zion Logue on the defensive line. I think Zion Logue, as a rookie, a 6th-round pick out of Georgia, has a really, really good chance of making the practice squad. Ultimately, with Eddie Goldman coming back, that room just became too crowded for him. Safety Lucas Dennis, defensive lineman Lacale London, Storey Jackson at linebacker, along with Donavan Mutin, Milo Eifler, outside linebacker Bradlee Anae. I could see him making the practice squad for sure if he... As a veteran, I don't think he's actually going to be subject to the waiver wire. I think he'll be an outright free agent, so he could sign elsewhere. Demone Harris, and then a couple of DBs, Trey Vaval, Kevin King, Natrone Brooks, Dane Cruikshank. Kevin King, as a veteran, is not going to go to the waiver wire. If you've played more than 4 seasons, you're just a free agent. You can sign wherever you want. If you have not occurred 4 seasons, you're subject to the waiver wire, like in your fantasy football league. So I'm sure the Falcons are going to bring back Kevin King and open up a roster spot for him in the near future. As for Natrone Brooks, he was a standout during the preseason. I'm sure Atlanta will love to get him back on their practice squad if he does clear the waiver wire. And then a couple of other DBs that were released as well, William Hooper, Jaden Price, and Trey Tarpley. So those are the roster cuts that have been made so far. Before we look at the updated depth chart, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are now in Steelers talk mode as we take on Pittsburgh week 1. So let's take down the Steelers not only on the field on week 1 and on Sunday in week 1, but also within the walls here at Chat Sports. Steelers fans, they talk a lot of shit. They feel like they won all their Super Bowls in the last 6 months, when in reality, they haven't won a playoff game since 2016. So help us defeat Steelers Talk in subscribers. Hit that sub button down below. Looking at the quarterback depth chart first, you got Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix, and then Taylor Heinicke sneaks on. Good for Heinicke, I suppose. Now, I don't think he is out of the woods just yet. I would not be surprised if the Falcons move on from Heinicke to open up a roster spot for someone else in the next couple of hours. Like if they, for example, make a waiver claim for a wide receiver and they are awarded that wide receiver. Who's the 53rd guy on the roster? It could be Taylor Heinicke. On to the running backs now. Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Avery Williams, and then rookie Jace McClellan won the job over Carlos Washington. I don't know if Jace was superior than Washington in training camp or, hey, that's a rookie. We don't want to give up on our rookies this quickly. So I think that might be a good reason as to why he made the roster. But nevertheless, the Falcons take 4 running backs, so kudos to them. Now, before we look at the rest of the depth chart on today's video, I do got to tell all of our viewers about Factor. If you're like me and maybe you pick out a little bit on Sunday and you need to eat better and healthier Monday through Saturday, Factor has so many awesome deals and options for Dirty Birds fans. They have Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto options. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/FalconsChat50 and use code FalconsChat50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code FalconsChat50 at factormeals.com/FalconsChat50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Wide receivers now. 5 make the initial 53-man. Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, and then I think Kadero Hodge and Casey Washington were pretty much safe locks to make the roster. Chris Blair was someone that I had on my initial 53-man roster projection. Ultimately, he's going to be someone Atlanta tries to get onto their practice squad and probably promote for the first few weeks until they run out of free promotions, and then they are forced to make a decision. But at that stage in the game, the sad reality is there's probably going to be an injury that pops up that opens up a roster spot. Only 3 tight ends, Kyle Pitts, Charlie Werner, and Ross Dwelley. The Falcons, I don't know if you guys saw this, were either first or second in 11 personnel usage during the preseason, which means 3 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 tight end. We'll see if that's actually a blueprint for what to expect this year. It's what I've been preaching since they hired Raheem Morris, really, and signed Kirk Cousins. They're going to have a lot of wide receivers on the field, so they need a lot of depth at that position, which is why I think we're going to see the Falcons really pursue or try and get some of these receivers that were released by other teams today off of the waiver wire. Noah Brown, he had over 500 yards last year for the Texans. Kadarius Toney, how about D. Eskridge from the Seattle Seahawks? Ton of speed. Falcons like speed. They traded for Rondale Moore. They signed Jakeem Grant. Dwayne Eskridge, definitely someone to watch for from the Seahawks as he was released today as well. Now, speaking of the tight end room, can Kyle Pitts get back to 1,000 yards? I think everyone became sucker for Kyle Pitts when round 6 of your fantasy draft rolled around and he was staring at you in the face. So let me know. Give me an O for over or a U for under. Offensive line now. 9 offensive linemen. Jake Matthews, Matthew Bergeron, Drew Dahlman, Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGarry, your 5 starters, and then 4 backups. Storm Norton, your swing tackle. Javon Gwynn, second-year guy out of South Carolina, 7th-round draft pick. Ryan Uziel, your backup center, and Kendall Hinton, another good interior offensive lineman. So the offensive line for the Falcons, it's top 5 in the NFL. It's one of their better units. It's a very sturdy unit. It's been very dependable for a long time now, so I like where they're at in this room. Now let's talk about the defense here, starting with the line. Zach Harrison, David Onyemata, Grady Jarrett, Taquan Graham, Kentavious Street, rookies Rukaroro and Brandon Dorlus, along with veteran Eddie Goldman, who has not played since 2021. This is a very young room and also a very veteran room in the same way. Like, you've got Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata and Eddie Goldman, right? But on the other side, you've got some puppies in Rukaroro, Brandon Dorlus, and then you have Zach Harrison entering his 2nd season. So there is like a huge age disparity in this group. I got to envision that, like, if they have a group chat for the defensive line, half of the group chat has no idea what's going on. The other half is like, we got some boomers here. So I like the line for the Falcons. We move on to the outside and inside linebackers now, where adding Matthew Judon makes me a whole lot more comfortable with this pass rush. He is joined by Caden Ellis, Troy Anderson, Lorenzo Carter, and then Arnold Ebiketie and James Smith-Williams coming off the edge. And the interior, you got Nate Lamon, J.T. Bertrand, and D'Angelo Malone, an outside linebacker as well. So adding Matthew Judon drastically improved this room. It gave them a real pass rusher and not a project or a hope and a prayer on some of these younger players to develop and take a big step forward in year 2 or year 3. So very excited for this room now that Judon's a part of it. Corners. You got A.J. Terrell, Mike Hughes, D. Alford, Antonio Hamilton, and Clark Phillips. I expect Kevin King to rejoin this room. The Falcons may be making some roster moves and maneuvers over the next 2 to 3 days to open up a spot for the veteran who, a lot of times, when you see these veterans released, there's somewhat of an understanding between the team and the player, like, hey, we got to release you because if we release a younger player, they go to the waiver wire and some team could pluck them from that. Whereas with you, you can sign wherever you want. So don't go anywhere. We're going to bring you back in 2 days. We just got to move some guys around and open up a roster spot for you, whether that means trading someone away, putting someone on injured reserve, or releasing someone. So I think we're going to see some more maneuvering going on and bringing back someone like Kevin King. As for the safeties, you've got Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons, Micah Abernathy, a really good special teamer, and then Richie Grant, with DeMarco Hellams being placed on injured reserve designated to return. So Hellams suffered that ankle injury against the Dolphins in preseason week 1. By being placed on injured reserve, he is subject to miss the first 4 games of the season, but he also does not count towards your 53-man roster. So luckily the Falcons will get Hellams back at some point, hopefully, and some nice reinforcements, but we've got Bates and Simmons. Those 2 guys never need to step off the field. Special teams now, Bradley Pinion, Younghoe Koo, and Liam McCullough at long snapper. So that is your 53-man roster, initial 53-man roster. Now, predict the Falcons' record for me. Let me know what you think Atlanta's going to do this season. I've got them going 10-7. Would love to hear from everyone watching down below in the comment section. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch up with you with more Falcons news and rumors soon.